Hello, Gary.
Hello, Guy. I've just got back from tennis. I have taken up tennis. I am actually a man with who could be retired. So obviously I'm not retired, but I have one of those passes.
Tired.
I have one of those passes that gets me onto tubes at any time of the day.
Yeah.
What do you call those? I've forgotten.
Freedom pass.
Freedom pass. I have a freedom pass. So it's kind of, isn't it what retired people do? They go and learn to play tennis. So I'm finally doing that.
Well, it's
trying
quite funny,
my
Gary,
best.
because you've actually done your entire life back to front now, haven't you? Because see, what happens is you pick up a tennis racket and you go and stand in the mirror. And then you go and get tasked. Whereas what you've done is you've just had an entire lifetime as a musician, and now you've picked up the tennis racket.
Well, because I come from a proper working class background, we never had tennis rackets lying around in the house.
That's something I always found a bit suspicious. That's what always got. I used to do that as a line in my stand-up show. When there's that thing of people always said about standing in front of the mirror with a tennis racket. A tennis racket,
Yeah. But what I did, I went to a grammar school and we played hockey. And of course I was rubbish, right? And I do remember vividly daydreaming with the hockey stick as a guitar, standing near the edge of the pitch, doing Telegram Sam and a furious sort of, physics teacher. Physical training PE teacher
who are always sadists.
It was a bit like that guy in Kes, the film Kes.
Oh yes.
I forgot what that actor's name is. He's brilliant. He thinks he's Bobby Charlton, doesn't he?
That's right. Yeah.
So very similar to that. Kemp, what are you doing? Anyway,
you got one of those. That's the same as mine. I mean, admittedly, mine is the best ever. It's those names, those surnames, which is just made manna from heaven for teachers. Pratt. Don't know, sir.
But you can spot me. You can spot me over this because I'm just learning, right? I've got an instructor.
Where are you?
He's patient.
Oh yes.
He's patient, and you can spot me. I've got my K Swiss. I've got me Lacoste socks.
With you, it's you've worked backwards from the outfit, haven't you?
I got me Wilson. I've got all the gear. And I'm killing low-flying birds, Do
you know what? Because I used to play tennis a bit, and I just knock around tennis. And then, funnily enough, what put me off was on the 1994 Pink Floyd's tour, we had an assistant tour manager called Marcus, lovely guy, who was a tennis pro. And he offered to give us tennis lessons as well. And he looked amazing. That's the thing. People who've always played tennis look amazing. No, they get to 70 and they just look amazing.
They do.
And
I haven't got long. I've got 4 years to deal with, sort it out.
No, but I remember the first day, we were in some Four Seasons hotel. Of course, there's a tennis court, and I went to have a lesson, and he was just like, no, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. And I'd worked out my way of hitting the ball, and he made everything I was being asked to do was so counterintuitive. It was like, this isn't fun. This just isn't fun having to go back this far. And so I stopped.
So you went back to drugs and drink and women.
Exactly. Which is actually a much more efficient touring hobby. And let's face it, more widely available than tennis courts.
But the only trouble is you look 90 when you're 70.
Well, exactly.
By the end of that. Right, enough of sport. But we will return to sport, I think, because Chris, who's our guest today, is an obsessive Arsenal fan and was a professional, well, maybe
that's right,
semi-pro footballer. In fact, he couldn't decide at one point, I think, if my researchers have been correct in telling me,
your team of interns,
that who are currently out getting my racket restrung. Because I can't seem to hit the ball with it. I'm blaming my tools
racket,
every day.
I'm sorry, I have to ask, is your racket highly strung? Sorry, I'll get my coat.
Right. And he but he picked up the guitar instead, lucky for the Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
But Chris is our guest today, and he will be talking about a little bit. We might be talking about Arsenal. I don't know when this is going out, but 2 days ago I did see us win the semi-final against Atletico Madrid, and it was a great night, fantastic night. I mean, I've never heard a stadium so loud, and I've been to a few matches. It was amazing. So he's a big fan.
It's great that he beat Atletico Spiz 80.
Right. New Rolling Stones record. Oh my God. You know, I don't know what to expect. I thought Hackney Diamonds was great. And I have heard these first 2 tracks that have been released. And I can't believe Mick's voice. I mean, I really cannot believe that he's singing exactly how he sung in 1974.
No, I agree.
1975, whatever, you know.
Yeah. No, that is the thing that's really weird about Mick. He had a period, didn't he, when he was sort of in his late 30s, when it seemed like he was going to maybe start getting a bit old and he was getting a bit tired at gigs and everything. And since then, he's just gone backwards. It's just gone, and it's just weird. I mean, I think the record sounds great. I love, and they're proper Rolling Stones songs. I love that about it.
Yeah, I mean, I love Rough and Twisted because I love Ronnie's bottleneck on it. I think that's
that's really great. I want, like I said, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter until they're live because it's just that thing of you know, when there was Daryl, when it was just Daryl, who's fabulous, and of course he's the jazzer, and him playing with Charlie, they complement each other. That was great. But the thing is, now it's a posh rhythm section now, and so for me, it's hard to translate that into a live thing. So
yeah, but you know, Charlie dies. Okay, is that does that mean that everyone else has to retire?
Well, exactly. No, exactly. I don't know what you do. I don't know. You know, I mean,
and the thing is, while it's still, you know, Keith and Mick and even Ronnie, you know, as far as I'm concerned, those 3 playing together cannot be suddenly put under another name or make or they wouldn't want to make a Mick Jagger solo album. So it's still the Rolling Stones. I mean, you've got to remember the Rolling Stones, in my memory, in my lifetime, have had so many changes.
Yeah.
They had Brian Jones was the leader of the band, you know, when I was a kid. And then, of course, he goes, and Mick Taylor then makes some of the greatest Rolling Stones records ever. And it's probably a good argument to say once Mick Taylor went and Ronnie came in, I mean, that was a completely different band.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what's quite funny is the time frame, isn't it? Because, you know, like Brian's, 5 years, Mick's like 4. Is he? It was 74 he left, wasn't it? He was there from, so it's 5 years he's there. And then it's Woody for 473.
I love Woody, mate. I love Woody.
What
I love about his playing.
Woody is but he's just such a definitive person. Is like that definitive look. Is that you know, and he's the person that everybody loves. He's just got that thing, and that's why. And I'm so thrilled to be on the last record he put out.
I mean, he's the AI version of the Rolling Stones, isn't he? Really? I mean, you know, if you put all the Rolling Stones information into AI and said, "Make me a copy." Well,
if you put English rock and roll, English rock and roll, it's basically it's everywhere. It's Jeff Beck. It's you know, there's that whole, you know,
who he played with.
Yeah,
you know. Anyway, so I'm really into it, and I can't wait for the rest of them. I just think, oh my God, you know, these guys are in their 80s now, and they're still managing to be so creative. I mean, you know, a lot of these acts now, Deep Purple, you know, they're making albums that are. That they care about. You know, they're sitting in a room and trying to express themselves like young men would, trying to find an identity in their music. They're not just throwing stuff out there, you know, and you can and what a great thing to be doing in your 80s.
No, absolutely. But there's also things, especially like with Deep Purple, which, you know, of course I was gutted to miss. I'd also like to actually point out to our listeners that I'm actually only now just really back up to speed. I don't know if I was necessarily firing on all cylinders on our last episode or two. So sorry about that.
A little bit of a issue health problem, but
I've had
nothing really. Head cold.
Nothing.
Nothing a good cup of beef tea can't cure.
And some vapors wouldn't. No, but you said, but again, with that Deep Purple record, where there seems to be a thing where I don't know what it is, where suddenly people can embrace who they were in a way that perhaps they haven't been for years. If you know what I mean, like that Deep Purple record has that all, you know, it hasn't sounded like that for years. And it's fantastic. And I guess in the same way as the Stones are just like, it's just kind of like, oh fuck it, this is who we are.
Well, and there's McCartney who's coming up. You know, I think what it is when you get to a certain age, you don't know if this is the last bit of evidence that may have, you know, this is the Stones' 25th album. People will want to know what the last thing you did was, and you make, you know, you're going to make sure that it's a beauty, right?
Yeah,
I think that. Anyway, Are you prepared to talk about Arsenal for the first 5 minutes?
I'm very happy to talk about Arsenal. I mean, I think I might be reviving my fandom. As you know, I used to be a season ticket holder.
You did.
And as if our listeners know, my rich family history with Arsenal.
Your rich family.
That my uncle, Dr. John Crane, was the doctor for Arsenal and England, and was the England doctor at Italian 19, was the man who held Gaza as he cried and bandaged Terry Butcher's head. And in fact,
it's
he was
like
also
the World War I stories.
I know, but he was a GP on the incredibly rough Aylesbury estate in South London as well. And in fact, when they pulled that down and they sort of did a lot of rebuilding, they named streets after local sort of renowned people, and there is now Dr. John Crane Street, SE1.
Crane! I bet no one ever shouted that at him.
It was interesting because he lived on Camberwell Road, and it was the one house that never got burgled. That's the dock. That is. You don't touch the dock.
very, very convincing. Your roots. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. It's your turn to ask if we should get them on.
Should we get them on?
Welcome to the Rockonteurs.
Yeah.
Yay! Chris.
All right.
Where are you?
I can make you louder. Hold on one sec here. Okay. All right.
Where are you, Chris?
I am at my studio, which is really just a dilapidated building in Santa Monica that I rent a room at.
Nice. Lots of cables, I see. Very good. Very good with your cables.
See that?
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
That's a pro gig right there, my friend. And if you look over there, there's boxes of junk, gear, drums, guitars. It's all piled up.
That's what you do as if you're a writer and you endlessly sharpen your pencil to procrastinate. You just endlessly tie up cables and hang them, right?
You know what? That is absolutely correct. It's to not deal with this.
Do you know, I'm in my studio that I built because I moved to the country, and this is the studio that I built in my garden. And the thing that when people come around, musicians come around, the thing I show them and go, no, never mind all this. And I open that there's a room here, which is my own lockup. It's where I can keep all my guitar cases.
Yeah.
And musicians go, oh yeah. That's fine. Never mind the studio. It's like, yeah, your own lockup.
Well, it's funny. I don't want to, I don't want to kick this interview off on a total bummer note, but my family and I lost our house a year and a half ago in the Palisades fire.
Oh.
Yeah, and we're in the middle of planning to rebuild and
were you in the Palisades? No,
we're in the Palisades. Yeah, so we're pretty far along. We've got our plans submitted and everything, and I think we're going to break ground in the summer. But the reason I'm telling you this is because for the first time ever in my life, I am going to have a home studio, which is really just going to be like a closet, but it's going to be my home studio. And it's going to be
this
great.
little space here is where is my home studio and where I also do the podcast. I have a studio elsewhere, but there's something nice about, if you just have to pop up the stairs to get an idea down or talk to a guy like you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, there's both of them, though, isn't there? There's the being at home, which is fabulous, but there's also the illusion of going to work.
Yeah, but my kids are grown, so I don't have to create that illusion anymore.
Right.
My problem is I could be just about to find the greatest middle eight ever, and the Amazon guy will arrive. Right.
Oh yeah, yeah. Totally, or the plumber that your wife didn't tell you she had scheduled to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that old chestnut.
Yeah, that old chestnut. So yeah, I remember Mike Garson had one of the fires before. Mike Garson, the pianist, David Bowie.
I don't know him personally, but yeah, sure.
He lost his studio and his piano and everything went. I mean, it's struck a lot of artists.
Bob Clearmountain.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. I just ran into Bob in line at I went to go see Springsteen at the Forum like a month ago. And when I rocked up, Bob was in front of me picking up his tickets as well, and we had a little hug and hey buddy, how you doing? You guys rebuilding?
Yeah.
Oh, did you see the match? Did you see the match? We have to talk about Arsenal for 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, God, how crazy is it? Even just whenever we last emailed, like things. I mean, it's funny. Just in the short time that I've known you, Gary, I met you at that Arsenal fundraiser when we were riding high, like when the world was our oyster. We were the champions,
how you
man.
Met. Okay.
Yes. And And within a couple of months, it just seemed like all was lost. And now all of a sudden this week, man, it's just like
Turned
we're
around.
just it's football is so nuts.
The stress, though, the
Yeah.
stress. I was at the game. I was
Oh,
at
you
the
were?
game. It
Oh,
was
nice.
the most incredible atmosphere I've ever been.
Really?
You know,
What-
just the singing was so loud. I mean, that wonderful.
Were you at
North-
the
I was at-
Atleti game or the Fulham game?
No, the Madrid game. Yeah, I was at the
Okay.
semi-final.
Oh, nice.
And,
Wow.
The singing was, you know, the crowd were the 12th man. You know, there's no question.
Yeah.
And
seemed like it.
they just, you know, wouldn't stop, just pushed it over the line for them. But I mean, it's going to be tough against PSG. But
Oh yeah. Okay, so here's my very optimistic prediction, or how I would like to see it all play out. By the time we play PSG, we'll know if we won the title, right?
yep, we will.
So
We would have won it or lost it. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So assuming, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, I don't want to jinx it, but assuming we've won by then, I predict that we will play, the stress will be off our shoulders, and we will go into that game with a vengeance to pay them back for last year and just play stress-free, free-flowing football, attacking fast, you know, and with our defense that will win. So
Noel Gallagher,
that's
I know,
my
who
hope.
listens to us, has just switched off. You used to be a footballer, didn't you? That's the key to
Yes.
this.
Okay, this is very
Well, it's
funny
not the key
because
to Arsenal, because that's what I want to. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. I played for Arsenal. No, no, I never was, and it's funny because that rumor has stuck to me. There's a couple internet rumors that have just
Guns N'
been-
Roses is the other one. Isn't it?
Guns
I'm
N'
going to
Roses is the other
shoot
one.
to my
Yes.
researcher.
Yeah. No, it's fine because it's all over the place, and I get asked this all the time, and it's funny. I always give basically the same answer. Like the idea that I ever played football at a level. I mean, it's funny on both sides. The idea that I would be, you know, a teenager and have been good enough at either football or music to have to make a decision is hilarious. Like I was, because where I grew up, and when I grew up in Santa Barbara, we had a thing where it still exists called AYSO. It's sort of the lowest level of youth soccer, you know. And when I was a kid, everybody played it. I played it, you know, basically my whole childhood. And but it was not like, it's just a very low level, you know. It's fun and everybody did it, but nobody had any, I didn't grow up with any knowledge of the professional game. I don't remember there being football on TV in those days. Like I didn't know who any of the teams were, and none of my friends did either. So nobody followed it. And I was not good at all. And then really didn't play any sports after I picked up a guitar. So yeah, that rumor is, I always imagine the people that I play with now reading that somewhere and going, that guy? What? He was going to be a professional footballer? No.
Yeah. How did you end up falling in love with Arsenal, though?
Yeah, that's niche.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I didn't grow up with it, and it just wasn't part of American culture in those days, which has changed radically. Like my kids, you know, in their generation, they all grew up with it, you know, on TV and knowing all the teams and being into it. But I came to it through music, really, because I would see mostly like British rock bands and punk rock bands and stuff would have, like, you know, West Ham scarf or something, you know, football strip, and it just seemed like this cool exotic thing from far away that was tied into music. And then Arsenal specifically, when I don't know if you remember when John Lydon put out that book, No Irish, No Black, No Dogs. I think I got that order wrong. No Dogs, No Black, No Irish, whatever. His memoir. And he talked about growing up in North London or whatever and being an Arsenal fan. I just went like, oh, that'd be my team. And it was as simple as that. Like I just picked them, you know. So it's just luck of the draw that it was Arsenal.
Because there's a funny thing. It was like with the hip hop thing over here, where suddenly everyone was wearing LA Raiders stuff.
Right.
Yeah. You know, but no, I just, you know, the temptation to stop people to go, so how are they doing this season?
Right. Well, and to be fair, that's how I was for a long time, because I mean that would have been like the early '90s or something. And it still wasn't really on TV. Like I remember, like, you would have to go, like, get up at like 4 a.m. and go find like a British pub wherever you were to go watch a game if you were so inclined, and I was not inclined often to do that. So it wasn't really until I started touring over in the UK that I started following it more. And then it really wasn't. It was like when my kids were born. I don't know why, but that just kind of clicked. It just clicked in me, like
do you know what?
to
It's
really
funny
pay attention.
It's funny that you said about it being cool because it was British. Because I met Dave and Taylor once at I think it was about 2015. We were all doing a TV show in Europe, or some big shit thing. I can't remember. We were backstage. You guys was there, obviously, and we were playing. I can't remember. But anyway, I met them, and Taylor knew everything about our band, and I'm like,
right, yeah.
Because what I realized was that Dave, they were both very much Anglophiles.
Oh yeah,
British music.
Taylor in particular. I mean, God, yeah. Taylor on for the longest time on days off, he'd just go walk around and go like figure out where a studio had been that Queen had made a record out in 1975 or whatever, and he would just go, and it would be like an ice cream shop now, and he'd walk in there and go like, Queen made a record, like he was really he knew all the all the rock and roll stuff. Yeah, absolutely, yeah, for sure.
But even sorry, go on.
Well, I just wanted to finish up the football thing, because it's just funny, because you were in Santa Monica when you said about that thing about the early part. Because I always remember when I lived in LA, the whole English scene for football was those 3 pubs in Santa Monica, and it was like 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and it was because there's that whole community of English plumbers and stuff out there, isn't there? And all down there with their pints. Maybe 6 in the morning for the game,
Maybe you guys could shed some light on why do all British people eventually move to Santa Monica? It seems to be like it's the magnet in LA for the Brits.
I was 3 years in West Hollywood.
Because you get a pint at 6 a.m.
I never made it to Santa Monica.
Yeah.
But,
for real?
Where are you from originally?
I grew up in Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara.
Yeah. It's about an hour and change up the coast from here.
And so then where did you go from there? Because I'm guessing there wasn't a thriving punk scene in Santa Barbara. It's rather genteel, isn't it?
Well, actually, when I was a kid, I mean, it was probably like this to some extent everywhere, but there was a great music scene, local music scene when I was a kid. And I don't think we really knew how great it was. Like if you were a kid, me and all my friends started playing in bands like early in high school, and you could just always get a gig, and whether it was like your friends having a party or, even like eventually we started playing in like local bars and clubs and stuff. But there's a pretty good music scene. But yeah, it felt growing up there like we were out in the sticks, and I just thought this place is nowheresville, and the minute I can, I'm going to move to LA, where we had all been going, driving. LA was not that far away, so we would drive down to LA all the time to go see.
What year is this?
Gigs.
What year is this? Who's happening?
Oh God! Like when I first started going to shows, I mean, I was like a hard rock, heavy metal kid. So in the early 80s, like my first gig that I ever saw was Dio, but I started going to lots of heavy metal shows. It used to be a club out in the valley called the Country Club, and that would have been that was the heavy metal era that was just after the wave of like there was like Motley Crue and Rat and Great
Hair
White.
metal.
I was just maybe just too young to have seen any of those bands in the clubs. But then, like the next wave of like Armored Saint and Keel and stuff, like I don't know if those bands ever made it over the UK or had a following over there. But and then a big one. Well, a big one for us was Kerrang! Magazine. We would get Kerrang! Magazine at certain record stores. Would get that on import, and then you'd learn all about all the British stuff and European stuff that was happening around that time. So.
And then there's Def Leppard. Is that making an AC/DC? Or Foreign Acts making any?
Massive. I mean, those were like the big,
Yeah,
arena stadium bands of the time. And then there was like, but I was mostly going to the stuff that was like club shows, and I would occasionally go to big shows.
The Viper Rooms, did you get, there was that sort of?
Well, it was long before the Viper Room. Yeah, like that came
posh,
later.
Bit posh.
Yeah,
So
well,
this is 80s now. Is
Yeah.
it?
This is 80s. So it's like the Country Club, the Troubadour, the Whiskey, Roxy,
Right.
all that
Roxy,
stuff.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because there seems to be this parallel though. A lot of people your age or your kind of generation, whatever, that thing of being into that metal thing, but the scene that you're in is a punk scene, right? The bands that you play in are
absolutely, because
you played in this dizzying array of punk bands. It's been fantastic just going through the names of everyone you play with. It's
well, it's interesting. Like music sort of changed.
Yeah, exactly.
There was like an evolution there. So like I mean, for me personally, like the metal phased into glam rock. With the band. I don't know if you guys remember Hanoi Rocks. I always talk about.
Oh yeah.
Rocks. That was a meaningful musical transition for me. But then locally, where I was, when I was like in junior high and into skateboarding or whatever with my friends, you'd go, if you went to the skate park or you went to like skate somebody's ramp or something, nobody was playing the New York Dolls. It was it was like they were playing like it was either punk rock or it was thrash metal was starting to be a thing. So it was like it'd either be Metallica and Slayer, or it would be like TSOL and Social D and Agent Orange.
So when you say punk rock, you don't mean English punk rock, or do you? Maybe the Clash?
I actually, for me, when I first kind of got into punk rock was like way late for the party, but I mean that would have been like the mid '80s, and I was started listening to bands like Stiff Little Fingers and the Clash and the Damned and all the records that were already kind of old by then. You know what I mean? Like, but I loved all that stuff. I still love all that stuff.
Yeah, New Rose is one of the greatest, sweetest little nuts.
It's one of the most perfect
punk.
I mean, I think this is a debate that I have from time to time with Pat Smear, because Pat Smear is all about Brian James era Damned. Where for me,
and he's older than you, right? He's of the age that would have been around.
Yes, yeah. He was into it when it was current. But for me, Captain Sensible is like. He's like one of the most underrated guitar players, I think, to come out of punk rock. I mean, for me, Machine Gun Etiquette is like a psychedelic punk rock masterpiece, and that has a lot to do with his guitar playing.
No, there you go. But because I've been listening to a lot of the you and the bands around you from that kind of early 90s. Sort of, I guess it's third generation punk, you call it. And it's interesting for me as an English, because it's punk and it's furious and it's really, really fast, but it's very tidy.
Yes. Well, here's
competent.
So in my opinion, and people would probably debate me on this, but the sort of dirty little secret of that late 80s into the 90s, what became that sort of 90s punk rock, super fast, is that a lot, like people like me, a lot of the people making that music were kids that grew up on Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and now you're playing punk rock. So it's like, you know what I mean? And plus you can't forget there was like that era in the 80s, mid 80s, late 80s of like crossover, it was like punk rock and metal kind of fusing. And
you take someone like Johnny Thunders, right? Who's almost turning hair metal, isn't he, at one point, just before he dies,
Wow, man, I saw some crazy Johnny Thunders, late era Johnny Thunders shows. I saw some great Johnny Thunders shows. In like the mid 80s. He played Santa Barbara actually at one time. And it was great. He had the Dolls rhythm section. He had, Arthur Kane on bass, and Jerry Nolan playing drums.
Wow.
And there was another dude playing guitar, and then Johnny, and it was like I think there's a bootleg on one of those shows. I saw him twice on that.
Yeah, but weren't they in the Heartbreakers? Weren't they those guys also in the Heartbreakers?
I think Jerry Nolan was, but I don't think
Jerry Nolan was.
Yeah, I don't think Arthur Kane was. So it was almost like seeing the Doll, but they weren't all glammed up. They, it was like he had like
I saw them live a few times in the 70s. Amazing.
Yeah.
This is what I have to put in. Sorry, Gary has his Sex Pistols at the Screen of the Green. The little thing I have to put in at this juncture is that my first ever professional gig was I played for Sylvain Sylvain.
Really?
Yeah, I was in his band.
Oh, wow. How was that?
It was amazing. It was amazing.
I comforted him when he was fired.
It's I always, you know, I met him once when they were doing the reunion doll stuff.
All right.
We played a festival, and he was very nice. But I would never have asked him this, but I always wondered, like, does it bother you that Johnny Thunders gets all the acclaim, you know, from the dolls?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You know, well, Sylvain gave him the name the Heartbreakers, didn't he?
Oh, he did.
That was a
No,
present.
I didn't know that. I saw Johnny Thunders a couple times right before he passed away, and it was really sad because he literally couldn't get through a song at that point. It was just, it looked like the end, and then it was.
So what about the guitar, Chris? When did you get the guitar? When did it happen for you?
I have older brothers, and they both played, and so it was always around. And I started playing when I was 11, but it was really when I was about 14 that it really kicked in, because that's when I started playing with my friends. But prior to that, I was just kind of like, I learned my cowboy chords and a couple scales, and I wasn't really evolving much. And then I started playing with my friends, and like you guys know, the minute you get in a garage with your friends and start making a racket, it's like it just moves quick.
Now, I've heard you say this before, so sorry, I'm intrigued. Cowboy chords.
Yeah. Cowboy chords, like
Oh, music doesn't always work on the thing, but it might. Hopefully, it will.
Oh, we'll see. You know, just your root chords. You know.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh,
all right.
That's all I know.
Learned all those.
Are there more?
Yeah. I thought it was going to be something more exotic. I thought it was going to be with a flavor of pork and beans or something. I don't know.
Cowboy chords are the opposite of exotic.
Right. Yeah. They're like hard bits of 4x4, you know, whatever wood.
Exactly.
You build houses with them.
Yeah.
Republican chords.
Yeah. You know, honestly, my first teacher was probably the best teacher I ever had, because he taught me that. He taught me a couple of scales, like a basic, like, you know, G pentatonic scale or whatever that you could move around and apply to anything. And he taught me Beatles songs. I always say that's that is a perfect recipe for a foundation of a guitar player. You know, you learn Beatles songs, you don't even realize it. You're learning how music theory works just by that, how key changes, and, you know, when you go to that flat 7, you know, you're going to the 4 chord and all that stuff, you know, that
and then they weren't scared of diminished chords, and
you're totally
I don't think they even knew. It was, you know, when we had Hamish Stewart on, he made this great point that, like, it's one early song and it just goes from D and it goes down to the A minor, but when it goes back up to the D, just as a part, it goes A minor, C minor, then to the D.
Yeah.
It's like, why do you even need to do that? But it's amazing.
The thing is with Paul, especially, Paul was sort of so tutored in vaudeville and American songbook growing up as a kid that he found that was very accustomed to his ear. And I think John picked a lot up from him.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things to do, and I really don't do it at all, I don't think, in my own songwriting. But to make those kind of like difficult key changes and like bold moves that to the casual listener you don't notice it just flows, you know. I mean, they were genius at that.
What about guitar player? Who you were trying to emulate at that time? Who was your hero?
Oh, the first and foremost was Ace Frehley from Kiss. I mean, that was the poster on my wall, you know, when I was a kid. But then, you know, other ones of that early era were like, you know, my brothers listened to a lot of Black Sabbath, a lot of Deep Purple, a lot of Zeppelin, a lot of Aerosmith, you know, all the stuff that you would think, you know, kids in the 70s going into the 80s would be listening to. So it was just all that stuff. Randy Rhoads was a huge one for me, you know. But the thing was, like, as I was learning guitar, it was that era of like the super shred, Yngwie Malmsteen, you know, all that really technical, precise stuff. And being a kid, obviously I couldn't play any of that. And then there was this back to basics kind of thing that happened, where all the sort of like Guns N' Roses and Jet
Thank
Boy,
God,
all those
actually.
And
it's kind of like it was a sort of punk thing in a way, wasn't it? It's what
it really was. I mean, I don't think people understand it that way, but it really was, compared to what hard rock, heavy metal stuff was doing before that. And that was all stuff that you could wrap your head around. You know, I could play a New York Dolls song. I was never going to be able to play I Am the Viking or whatever by Yngwie Malmsteen. Was never in a million years. So like you could wrap your head around like an Ace Frehley lick that, you know, but so it was great. It just worked.
And when grunge started to happen, what if we can call it that, you know, whatever it is up in Seattle, Nirvana, did you get into that? Was that your?
Well, okay. So moving forward, I moved to LA at the very beginning of 1990. And that was like a real, I think prior to moving, it's like I knew that music was changing and the Guns N' Roses thing was receding somewhat, and there was some, you know, this other stuff kind of happening. But I don't think I really got it until I moved to LA. Like I moved to LA with like my fucking, you know, bright yellow stretch jeans and big spiky blonde hair, like, woo, I'm ready, let's go. And you know, and it was like, wait, what? Where'd that go? That doesn't really exist anymore, you know? And so there was like that period there where like alt rock was happening. You know, you had your Jane's Addiction and Pixies and all these bands and all that early grunge stuff. You know, a lot of those bands were already putting out records by then. But it hadn't exploded yet. And it was sort of like, I don't know. I think me and my friends were just trying to figure out what was happening. And then, you know, like the current crop of punk rock bands was, that whole scene was a few years away from really exploding, but was happening and was fun and cool. And so, yeah, I think, you know, I was never like, it's funny. We just did this thing the other, because we just put out a new Foo Fighter record, so we're out doing the whole promo hustle, and we did this thing where this YouTube show where you listen to these different songs and you have to guess what they are or whatever, and you know, as you would expect, those things are always kind of like geared to ultimately to sort of like Dave's musical taste, you know, and we're just kind of along for the ride, but and so they're playing stuff that like I just didn't know, like I never really listened to a lot of Sonic Youth records and stuff like that. I just didn't, you know, like, and to be perfectly honest, I was, as grunge was exploding, to me, having come out of more of a rock background, it just wasn't different enough to me. I loved Nirvana, but I didn't really listen to the rest of it, you know? It just wasn't for me. I was listening to NoFX and Bad Religion.
So no Pearl Jam or?
I just wasn't, and nothing against any of those bands. Like, hey, you know, they're all massive for a reason, but it just wasn't my musical scene. I was listening to like I said, like a lot of like the sort of punk rock that was happening, but I was also listening to all the stuff coming out of the UK at that time, like, you know, like Primal Scream and the early Prodigy stuff. You know, I was like, loved all that, just all those bands, Charlatans and everything. I remember going and seeing a bunch of those bands when they first were coming over here, and it just seemed, that scene to me seemed like, whoa, this is some wild different thing, you know, Blur and all that stuff.
We'll get to it, but in actual fact, the fact that you weren't a kid who was just into Nirvana actually ended up, when you ended up joining the Foos, it made you bring something else to the
maybe so. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Nirvana. I bought Nevermind just like everybody else, and wore that shit out. And when that happened, that was like a fucking atom bomb I don't know what it was like. I'm sure it was the same over where you guys
it was,
like,
that
was just like everything was kind of seemed like it was going this way, and then everything seemed like it was going that way. It just that changed everything. And
we all went out and bought check shirts, right?
yeah, totally.
No, I remember it's like that Reading festival where they played, and it's like kind of Reading had been this kind of, well, what the fuck festival for years, and suddenly it was the coolest place on the planet, you know.
Wow. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Tell me about this band. We should tell us about you know, your there.
Which one? He's got so many.
Well, there is nothing left to. No use for a name. I mean,
no use for a yes.
Well, so no use for a name. So I lived in LA for about 5 years and played around in bands and stuff, and never, like, you know, got that big record deal or whatever. And then my buddy Joey, who is the singer in a band called Lagwagon, who had put out who was putting out records on a label called Fat Records. Fat Records was owned by Fat Mike. Fat Mike's the bassist singer for No Effects. I'm just giving you the quick Reader's Digest history here.
With some Pete Frame family tree kind of.
Yeah.
It would be endless if you tried to do that on the American punk world, wouldn't it?
Totally. So Fat Records was based in San Francisco, and my buddy Joey was going to move up there, and he's like, you should move up with me and we'll put a band together. And I was like, great. Yeah, let's do it. I had nothing going on. It was kind of this stretch. Like the last year or so of living in LA was the first time that I had not been in a band for like an extended amount of time. I think since I was 14 or so, you know what I mean? I'd never just not been in a band. And there was this period where I wasn't playing.
What are you doing
music.
when that's happening? Sorry. I mean, like you doing McJobs or what, how are you keeping body and soul together?
At that moment,
I had music doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I always worked, but at that exact moment, and maybe this was part of inspiring me to move to San Francisco. I was working in the PR department at the House of Blues up on Sunset. Yeah. So I was, and part of that gig was
So is this early 90s?
Oh yeah. This was like, I think I got that job around 93 or 94 or something like that.
I was living in West Hollywood then.
Oh, wow. So we might have been in the same room. I might have been like the guy that walked you into the club one night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go make sure Gary gets some free drinks. Get him in the
set up my
Founders
velvet
Club.
rope.
Yeah, exactly. It could have been me.
He takes his own. He takes his own everywhere.
Brings a backpack with some cans. Yeah. Yeah, so I was doing that and not playing music, and my buddy Joey suggested that we move up to San Francisco together, and we were going to put a band together. And he helped me get a job at Fat Records, and so I moved up there, and I started working at Fat, and was just there for a few weeks, and the guys in No Use for a Name came in and said their guitar player had just quit, and they were like leaving for tour on Monday, and they needed a guitar player fast. And I wound up basically Fat Mike put me in that band. And that was that. And then that was the first band I was ever in that made records and you know, had a fan base and did it for real. So it was great.
So how did it happen? How did you end up in one of the biggest bands in the world?
Was it them who supported Foo Fighters? Because that's where because Dave knew you from a support slot, didn't he?
Oh yeah, well, so my band, I was in a band in high school called Rat Pack, and Rat Pack opened for Scream in the 80s.
Okay, so it's back further, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I was just talking about that the other day. Like, that story would have been so much cooler if I had actually hung out with him that night, you know. But it was like one of the rare
this is
moments.
Dave's band. This is Dave's band.
Yeah, Dave was playing drums in a band called Scream. You know, it was the band that he was in before Nirvana, and we opened for them at this Chinese restaurant on State Street. And then I just kicked myself for this. Like, they all went and stayed at our drummer's house, and I'm sure had a fun night, you know, up there. And I was like, I got to go to school tomorrow. I'm going home. Like, the only time in high school I ever made that responsible.
Wow, I would have loved
decision.
you as my son.
Yeah, right. I think that could have gone a couple. You know, had I gone and partied with them that night, maybe I would have annoyed them all and then wouldn't have gotten the gig in Foo Fighters. So I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing.
There's always that, isn't there? There's always
that,
isn't there? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But when the Foo Fighters audition came up, that I had been in No Use for 4.5 years. We had just made a new record and we were getting ready to go on tour, and then the opportunity to try out for Foos came up, and I went and did that, and it was kind of stressful because it was like I knew for about a week before the audition, and then from the first audition was about a week to the second audition. So there were a couple of weeks there where I was like,
Chris, how did you know the audition was going to happen?
But yeah, because you were offered another audition, right?
Well, no, that is not unlike my glorious days as a professional footballer. That's also
I know there's a sort but I don't know. So you're off, but you were aware of another audition, shall we say?
So the real story, and I want to make it very clear: nobody from Guns N' Roses ever asked me to even audition, much less join their band. And you have to
but someone.
I know,
did.
but that someone was my best friend, Bill.
Right.
Called me. It was that summer of 1999. It was the beginning of summer at some point. And he said, hey, I think I could get you an audition with Guns N' Roses. And I said, I just heard that Foo Fighters guitar player quit. Do you know anybody that works for Foo Fighters? He's like, I know a lawyer that works at their law firm, the law firm that represents them. Let me see, and then I forgot, and like months went by. So I didn't think at the time I'm going to get an audition for the Foo Fighters. I just thought, we're just me and my friend talking, and then a couple months went by, and then I got a call from Gus, who is still our tour manager, who was the tour manager of the band back then. And I actually kind of knew him from he had tour managed a band called Seaweed that No Use for a Name had toured with on the Warped Tour. So I kind of knew Gus, and he called me one day and said, hey, it's Gus from Foo Fighters, or do you want to come audition? I was like, who the fuck is this? Like, come on. And it was real. Yeah. So that's kind of how that.
And what do you take to your
about.
audition? Do you take your pedal board, your amp, your guitar? Are they saying, are you?
I don't
your best
remember.
licks?
Yeah, I don't remember what the discussion was. I'll tell you what they did. So they sent me a cassette tape of 4 songs. There was and I don't remember exactly what the 4 songs were, but I do remember it was 1 song from the first record. You have to remember, at the time they had made the 3rd record, but the 3rd record wasn't out yet. Right. So they made the 3rd record as a 3-piece, and then they were putting it out. So they needed to get a
so not quite as big as they're going to be, right?
Oh God, nowhere near it. Yeah, nowhere near it. I mean, already a well-established band. I mean, they had like hit songs on MTV and stuff. But like, as those of us that actually do this know, like, having a hit single is not the same as having a huge fan base. So they were like, it was obviously they were established and on their way, but it wasn't. I mean, we can get into that, like what touring was like in those days, because it was very different. But so they sent me a cassette tape. It was 1 song from the first record, 1 song from the second record, a song from the Godzilla soundtrack, the song A320, that oddly enough we've just started playing again for the first time since back then, and then a song from their as yet unreleased 3rd record, and that was what the audition was. So what I did, I don't remember them saying like, you don't need to bring an amp or anything like that, but I know I didn't bring one. I just brought my guitar, and in those days I didn't have a pedal board. I never had pedals until I always was just straight into my amp. I didn't even have a tuner on stage when I was in No Use for a Name. You know what I mean? I just literally just 1 cable right into my amp, and that was it.
Punk rock,
it wasn't,
right?
yeah, and it wasn't until I joined Foos that I ever had like a delay. I remember right away I had to get a delay pedal and a flanger or something. I was like, what the fuck? How do you use this? Like, I don't know. Guitar players.
What devilry is this?
You know what I mean? Like the delay pedal just mystified me. I was like, every time I turn this, like I'm over. It was either way too much or you couldn't hear. I was like, where is the sweet spot on this fucking thing? Because I didn't even know like what a effects loop was at that point. I was so ignorant on gear.
Maybe that was part of the charm.
Maybe. I mean, they're not like, and they're not gearheads either. You know what I mean? So we were all, none of us had like fancy elaborate rigs at that point, but I just wasn't like, and the part of this is because I just didn't have the means to go out and buy a bunch of stuff when I was a kid, but I never had anything when I was a kid. I just had my guitar and whatever amp I had, and that was it. And you just learn to, like, if I wanted to clean up the tone, I turned the volume down. If I wanted it to be louder, I turned, just that was all I ever knew.
More Jimmy Page, really.
Jeff Beck.
Right.
Jeff Beck.
And unknowingly pulling from, but that was like the era of guitar playing that like was, that I was a little bit younger than that, but like those were the people, and that was the gear that was sort of available to you, you know what I mean? And those sort of ideas. I remember being a kid going into my local guitar store, and I was like, how do they make the distortion? Like, how do they make that sound? And the guy behind the counter told me, well, Jeff Beck just cuts holes in his speakers. I was like, fucking cutting holes in my brother's what? Like, I'm still paying for it. Right. You know what I mean? Like, what does that mean? But yeah, whatever. So I just didn't know anything about it. And yeah, that's how that went. And it was very similar to joining No Use, where the Foo Fighters were going out to do like a promo tour, like almost right away. So it was just, I just got to jump into it. And and
So
figure it out.
was Taylor on drums in the audition then? Was he?
Oh, yeah.
And everyone was, there was this, as it was, the band. And what
Yeah.
did they say to you afterwards? Was it a sense of like, we'll call you or thank you, and there's another guy waiting outside?
There was a guy in the, like, I got there a little early. There was a guy auditioning before me, and I'm sure there must have been a guy after. The first audition was pretty quick. It was maybe about an hour. We probably spent most of that time just kind of like shooting the shit or whatever, and played through the 4 songs. We got through the 4 songs, and my memory is that I was like, I know all your songs off your first couple, right? You know, maybe we played a couple more.
No solos, right? Just
Yeah, no, they didn't ask for my my soloing prowess. It was, I think I probably hid that from them, if anything. You know, this was still the 90s, you know. When you had to be ashamed of being a lead guitar player.
But then you went back for a second audition. Sorry to dwell on this. It's just, for me, this is utterly fascinating. I just love how your life gets changed because of this.
Oh,
moment,
yeah.
you know?
It was radical. So, like, you know, the second audition was much longer. I think they had a couple people back for second auditions, and it was a much longer affair. We played a lot of songs.
It's the callback. Like
the callback, yeah. And at the end of that, that's when I knew things were, I thought, like, ooh, maybe this might have worked. Because at the end of it, Dave was like, hey, why don't you come by our hotel later? And, you know, we'll grab a drink or whatever. I'll play you the new record.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, cool. And I went to their hotel, and we all went down to the bar. Like, I went to Dave's room, and he was playing me songs from their new record. And
this is your social audition.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. And so
see if you give good bus.
It's funny. I remember really being disciplined that night to not get too fucked up. I was like, I can't make an ass of myself just yet, you know? And at the end of, we're all down in the bar at the end of that night, and Dave was like, all right, dude, I'm gonna call it a night or whatever. And he said, let's get together tomorrow and play some guitar, you know, and I'll get you a copy of the record. He said something like that. And I go, hey, I don't want to press you, but like, what does that mean? You know, like, if you guys made a decision, and he was like, he goes, oh, well, we got to talk about it, but, you know, you should be stoked, but we got to talk about it, but you should be stoked. And I was like,
yeah,
okay.
You know, I'm not going to go learn all these songs.
Well, I already learned them all, man. I mean, and by the way, that is like, as a side note, that is one of the things that I'm sure you've all experienced this. I will never understand how my fellow musicians go into these things unprepared. I was like, I don't care if they told me to learn 4 songs. I'm learning every song.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in there. I'm going to be able to play a set now, you know? But
I think what you brought them, though, what you brought to the Foos, Chris, was a certain amount of stability musically, I think, you know, because you do have good chops, you know, and that was something I think they really needed, you know, to sort of, in a way, to turn them into a classic rock band.
Well, it's interesting.
Is that fair?
I mean, I appreciate that. Like, that tour cycle really was like a huge evolution for our band. And a lot of, so maybe, I mean, I'd like to think I played my part, but a lot of that also had to do, there was a point when it was around the time that we did a bunch of touring supporting Red Hot Chili Peppers. And that was like, you know, like, we weren't an arena level band at that point, but they obviously were. And so we're playing these big rooms night after night, and it's just a different thing. And even down to, like, you know, Dave had an idea for like some kind of stage production, and even like we all kind of dressed in these. Was that the one that we dressed matching? I don't remember if that was it or not. There was a point there where we were like kind of wearing, like, you know, we could only dress in red, black, or white, and we all kind of had like a similar look. And then Taylor was really the one that was like, we have to get, I don't remember how he said it, but something to the effect of like, we have to get better, we have to get pro, you know. And we started having some auditions, just me, Taylor, and Nate, with the idea being like, we have to be like as strong a foundation as we can be, so that Dave can be out there being Freddie Mercury, you know, like,
Amazing.
like that's what we need. That's our role here, you know. And that really did change, kind of, it just changed everything musically, I feel like, you know, just in terms of like trying to be tight and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Because how was that first tour? How did it feel? So, I mean, for you,
great.
like, as a unit, I mean, was it like completely? Was it there from day one, or?
I'll tell you, it was weird. It was definitely strange getting used to it, because I'd been for years at that point playing like really fast music. I remember being like, I don't know how to be on stage in this unit. It was one of the first things, because like everything's just so much slower and more like sort of, even the up tempo stuff in a Foo Fighters set is nowhere near, what a name. You know what I mean? And I remember just having that feeling like, what the fuck do I do with myself? Like I'm not. I think if you look at that early footage of me in the band, I'm still like jumping around. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like I had just been so conditioned to be like that. So I think it took me a minute to settle in. And you also got to remember, I didn't know them at all.
Yeah.
I didn't know everybody's personalities. I didn't know everybody's quirks. I didn't know the sort of inter-band, good and bad stuff.
So you're thinking, am I little Steven? Am I Nils Lofgren? But who am I in this group?
Right, yeah. You know what I mean? You just don't know, and then you just start to figure
Bez.
it out, Yeah. I wanted to be Bez. Yeah. I'll take being Bez. Yeah. Be out there with my maracas dancing.
What about writing? Because now you're going to do an album with them, and you get joint writing credit on One by One, and there's some serious songs that are going to be written here. How did that feel to be embraced by Dave and into the process?
Well, I mean, that record in particular was so strange. Like that's a real like singular, process, if you even want to call it that, because we had made a whole version of that record that we didn't put out. And it's not exactly the same group of songs, but it's, there's a bunch of songs that wound up on what we eventually put out as One by One. But that period was very strange because we had been on tour, actually, in the UK. We had played the V-Fest, and then, Taylor had OD'd while we were on tour. And so everything kind of ground to a halt. And that was... I was still pretty new in the band and still really just getting to know everybody. I mean, I'd been in the band for a couple of years, so I knew everybody, but like, that was a pretty stressful, kind of shocking moment and everything kind of stopped, and then there was that period where Dave made the Queens of the Stone Age record. And then we got together and attempted to make a record, which was my first record. And it was really weird, man. Like there was a lot of tension, unspoken tension in the room. And even things that I think had been festering from before I was in the band, but around that time with Taylor and Dave kind of in particular.
Was Taylor worried that Dave was going to go and just go to Queens of the Stone Age?
I'm sure he was. I was too, by the way. I mean, I think everybody was. Because then we made that record and shelved it. And in my mind, and I'm sure probably was similar for, I don't want to speak for Nate and obviously, Taylor, but in my mind, I just thought, fuck, well, this is fuck, this is ending. I didn't even get to make a record, with these guys. Wow. Fuck, this is terrible, and Dave went off and did some touring with Queens of the Stone Age. And then we regrouped to play Coachella and got in a big argument at that rehearsal, and that kind of settled things. And then Dave was still out with Queens for a while, but then started sending everybody like demos and, doing what he does, getting everybody revved up to go make a record. But then the actual making of that record was really strange because I think Dave and Taylor did like drums and basic tracks out at his place in Virginia, but I wasn't there for that. And then when it came time, because we were still making records in those days, which was common at the time. We don't really do it this way anymore, but you would record all the drums, and then you would record all the bass, and you would record all the Dave's guitars. And then eventually, like, 2 months in, I'd go record some, it was like that kind of thing. So when it came to be my turn, Dave was actually still on tour with Queens. And so me and Dave and Nick Raskolinis, who produced that record, I remember got together in this studio out in North Hollywood and listened down to all the recordings, like where everything was at that point. And I just had like a pad of paper, and we just kind of went through, and Dave would be like, yeah, do something in that bridge, and, maybe double up those chords and that chorus, and, that part needs some color or whatever. And we just kind of made a bunch of notes song to song. And then Dave went back out on tour. And then it was just me and Nick Raskulinis just sitting in this room for, I don't even remember, probably just, a couple of days or something, kind of working out guitar parts and recording stuff. So it wasn't like
But without Dave
normal,
to guide you.
well, without anybody, nobody from the band was there. So, and that was very unusual. I don't think there was ever another record like that, because usually, regardless of sort of the approach to making the record, I'm recording my guitar parts, and everybody or most of the band is sitting behind me on a couch, either heckling me or giving me some kind of, incoherent instruction. Yeah, so that was really the only time that I think we ever, I know it's the only time we ever made a record like that. And it was very strange. And it was my first record. And we had gone through this sort of turbulent period where it changed. It woke me up to the reality that this thing is probably going to end a lot sooner than I want it to, was sort of what my takeaway from that moment was. And just try to be in the moment and like enjoy it while it's happening, because I have no control over all this other stuff that could make it end at any time.
But does that also inform the fact that you had so many side projects? You get
100%, because when we shelved the record, I had some songs that I've been working on. I didn't really even attempt to really write songs until sort of towards the end of being in No Use for a Name. And it was actually the bass player in No Use for a Name, Matt Riddle. I remember we were working on one of the records I made with them, and I remember him going like, dude, you should get like a 4-track. You always have these little ideas. Like, you turn that into a song. Like, that's a song. Turn that into a song. You should get a 4-track, which I did. And that was the first time I ever really, in a more disciplined way, I always had ideas, but I think I lacked the confidence or the discipline or the follow through to actually sit down and go, okay, this is going to be the verse, and I need to write some words, and this is the chorus, and I'm going to put it all together. And I think one of the things you learn, or at least I learned, my take on it is like a huge part of songwriting is writing the fucking song. You got to sit down and write the song. Like, you can't just talk about the song that you're going to write. You got to write the fucking song.
The work.
Good or bad, just write the song. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody has to hear it, but you got to sit down and write it. So so around that time with everything that was happening in Foos and Dave being on and me, and I just thought, this is probably ending. I gotta actually go record this stuff. And I formed this kind of a band called Jackson United for a few years there. Yeah.
There's a couple of things I want to ask you. There's one thing I'm just dying to ask you about, because I just love this, and it's not your songwriting. It's the Dead Peasants.
Oh yeah.
There's your cover version, which is one of the most niche covers I've ever heard in my life, and I know the scene from the film. I know the film. I know the people in the film. It's Gary. What it is a song called "Burning Lights," which is a Joe Strummer song, which is performed in a film called I Hired a Contract Killer, which was done by the Finnish director who made Leningrad Cowboys. And this is a film that was shot all around Portobello Road in 1990 with all Portobello sort of characters. Nicky Tesco from The Members is in it. And there's just this one, and it's just this amazing scene. And how the fuck you found this thing? It's amazing. Because the scene is Joe Strummer. Sorry, it's Joe Strummer in this bar on Portobello Road with a guy playing congas, and he plays this great song called "Burning Lights."
Yeah. Now I don't remember how I found that, and I honestly think I've only ever seen that scene. So now that you bring it up, I should probably go watch the entire movie because it sounds great. But I'm a huge Clash fan, and I remember when I saw that, just going like, how is there not a version of this that's like Joe Strummer in his full pomp doing this? You know what I mean? It's such a great, like, unknown Strummer classic tune. It's great.
He looks amazing in that scene, by the way. I must say, he looks like as kind of Elvis as he's ever looked.
Totally, yeah. And that was like, that was when he was kind of like not super.
He was kind of nowhere.
active.
That's it was
Yeah, he wasn't.
1990. Yeah.
Yeah,
Chris,
totally.
what saves the band is really the songs, because the songs come out so well on One by One. I mean, you know, All My Life, you know, Times Like These. I mean,
Yeah.
they become they become so big, you become almost slaves to them. You have to go out and play these things, right?
Sure. I mean, you can't imagine a Foo Fighter set without those songs now. That's
Yeah.
for sure. But again, that period was that's when things really got to a whole nother level. I mean, I remember that tour cycle in the UK, which, by the way, I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but like the UK has always led the way for our band. It's always been the place where we're the most popular. It's the first time we played a big theater, the first time we played an arena, the first time we played a stadium, first time we headlined a fest, all that stuff happened for us in the UK.
Well, I saw you in Hyde Park, and Dave was very, very clear about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's funny you mentioned that, because I don't think that was One by One. I feel like that was the next album cycle, but I could be wrong about that. But I remember at the beginning of that cycle, our manager, John Silva, I remember him saying that his goal was for us to play Hyde Park that cycle, and you know, that's what we were going to do. And I just remember, I didn't say it out loud, I was still pretty new in the band, but I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? That ain't going to happen. And then it did. It's crazy. But for One by One, that was our first arena tour we ever did. Was we kicked it off at MEN Arena in Manchester, and did this whole incredible UK arena run. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, just talk about Wembley, when you play Wembley Stadium and you suddenly, you know, you've got your childhood era heroes coming on stage, right? You've got Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones. I mean, Brian May play on that show? Did he with you? I can't remember.
I don't
Jimmy's
think so,
enough,
but he
right?
has
He was at Hyde Park, wasn't he?
A lot.
He came on at Hyde Park, I think, didn't he?
Yeah. Brian May and Roger have come out and played with us a bunch of times over.
It's a great feeling for you, though, right?
It's a great feeling, yeah, for sure. It's interesting, because you know the first Wembley gig we ever did was actually that what was it called? It was, oh man, I can't even remember what it was called. It was not Live Aid, obviously, but it was like something Aid. I'm totally drawing.
Not Net Aid. Did you do Net Aid? Was that at Wembley?
No,
Live Aid?
it was
not Live Aid. No,
it was at Wembley, and it was like
not Live Aid. No.
It was something Aid. I mean, God, I don't remember.
What year was it?
It was maybe a year or so before doing our own Wembley
2008,
gigs.
2007.
Yeah, and it was and we went, you know, and just played a short set along with like Madonna and Metallica and a bunch of people. It was a crazy gig, but that gig sort of propelled us, I feel like, into doing our own Wembley gigs. And then those Wembley gigs, you know, we filmed for like a concert movie, and I feel like that was an important part of Foo Fighter propaganda, because that concert movie kind of went everywhere. I remember every time I got on an airplane for a while, it'd be like us at Wembley. We'd be like one of the movies on there, like it'd be on, you know.
But what you realize is that Dave is a great communicator, right? He
oh yeah,
and it doesn't matter how big the audience are, he can make them feel like he's just talking to each and every one of them, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of his great gifts.
Even when he's got a broken leg.
Yes, almost more so when he's got a broken leg.
Oh my God, I can't believe that he fell off stage and then got back on and carried on and did another 2 hours.
I know, it's a terrible precedent for musicians everywhere to now have to live up to.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Listen, Chris, I know we've had you for an hour. Do you mind just running over a little bit? Just because.
Oh, I don't care. Yeah,
because it's great fun.
Yeah.
But just talking about the writing a bit more, are you allowed in the Foos to bring your own ideas in initially? Or is it something that it always comes from Dave first and then you chip in?
It always comes from Dave first. I don't know how much it's a question of being allowed or not. I think it's just, everybody in the band.
It's the way it works.
It's just the way it works, you know what I mean? And Dave always has more than enough musical ideas kicking around. And it's just that's that's what this band is. It's sort of what when I joined the band, it's what I assumed it was. So it wasn't like, wait a minute, I want to play my songs. And unlike other bands, you know, where there's no rules about what you do outside of Foo Fighters, you know what I mean? So like, you know, I'm a songwriter myself. I just put out my little solo records and
or start a
do
band
that.
with just baritone guitars.
No, but the solo stuff sounds great. The solo stuff, the solo stuff is great, and obviously,
Oh, thank you.
because obviously you have a country heart as well, right? And you spoke about the cowboy chords, but
Yeah,
is
for sure.
Where did that come in your life as a kid? I mean, who is it?
I honestly, if you really strip it back, I think it comes from the really early Beatles and Stones records. Because if you the really early ones that are basically rockabilly records, you know, to me, that sound of twangy, reverbed out guitars, it just strikes a chord in me. You know what I mean? It's just
that sort of period.
Oh, way before that.
then.
If you go
Okay,
if you get into the really early stuff, because like my brother Mike had all the early Beatles stuff, and all the early Stone stuff when I was a kid.
Little Red Rooster.
Being like, yeah, exactly, like that. And when they're covering like, you know, Chuck Berry songs and whatever, you know, I just love that stuff. And then, you know, my brothers also had like some Elvis records. I just always liked old music. And then and so there was a point, it was really when I joined, like I always liked old Sun Records recordings, and I think that was maybe my first introduction to maybe like the Sun Records era Johnny Cash stuff. And then I remember buying like a Patsy Cline Greatest Hits or something in high school and just dug that sound, but it wasn't something I was real knowledgeable about. And then when I joined No Use for a Name, I really credit Tony, the singer for No Use for a Name, turned me on to all the alt country stuff. You know, he was like, I always thought it would be funny if kids knew what we were actually listening to on those long van rides. It was all Sun Bolt and Wilco and, you know, Uncle Tupelo and bands like that. And so that was my introduction to that. And I'm just that kind of music fan that I go, I love that Sun Bolt song with that pedal steel in it. Like, where'd they get that from? And then that leads you back to Merle Haggard or whatever. And, you know, you just go and go.
And because the other
and
thing
then when
you've
I
got
just,
is a voice.
well,
you can sing,
when I
right?
discovered that there was this rich tradition of country music on the West Coast, I mean, that was kind of, as far as like country music, that was kind of my jump-in point, you know?
So who would that
the
be?
Bakersfields. Oh, it's Merle Haggard and it's Buck Owens, or the big two. But there's a thing called the Bakersfield Sound that really, if you really dive into it, it's the West Coast sound. You know,
which is funny because I always wonder, because Mick Jagger references Bakersfield on Faraway Eyes, doesn't he?
I'm sure that's not an accident. Yeah. I'm sure Mick Jagger knows exactly who those guys were.
Before you came on, we were talking about the new Stones 2 tracks that have just been released. Have you heard them?
No, I saw that they've got something coming out.
I mean, they sound great. I mean, Andrew Watt, isn't it, who does the production?
Andrew Watt, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's so, the sound, the guitar sound is fantastic, but Mick's voice is still exactly how it was in the 70s.
Isn't that crazy? How did he do that? I mean, I guess if you think about it, like he started jogging and like, you know, wearing workout clothes and stuff like in like Tattoo You era or something. So I guess he probably pulled it together just in time. But I tell you what, man, like Stones, you did like, that is just my all time. We played I think it was the day after them at Jazz Fest a couple years ago. And so we got to go see them on our day off. And they had like a little like seating area for like, you know, VIP guests or whatever. It was like on the side of the stage. And it was such a cool vantage because you could see, and I loved it. I love seeing how other bands sort of run, you know, organize their stage thing and have it on. And theirs was, I've never seen this before. It was so cool. So there was, you know, the stage with the band, you know, doing their thing. And then there was like an area behind that where like techs were kind of walking around. And then there was a scrim, and then there was an area behind that where there was some wardrobe people and then more techs and guitars and stuff. And I thought it was the coolest thing. Ron Wood had, I mean, at least 2 techs that I could see. There was like the one tech handling the guitars, bringing the guitar changes out. But then there was another tech. This is like so high end and totally analog at the same time. There was another tech who I think that tech's job was to crouch down behind his amps and had his pedal board and was doing his pedal changes for him
Yeah.
by hand, but also kind of like peering through the crack in the amps to get direction from him as he was on stage.
Yeah.
It's like, have you ever seen somebody do that?
I've never had anyone do that, but Johnny Marr does that. He plays.
Oh, really?
We saw Johnny, didn't we, Guy, a couple of
Yeah.
years ago, and Johnny had all his. What's happening? His sound's getting stronger. His sound's getting this way, and he wasn't touching anything. And of course, he's got it all off stage. He's got a tech who's doing that. I mean,
I've seen people be off stage with it, and I know that's the thing, but I've never seen somebody have their tech crouched down behind their amp. You know? Like, it was just seemed awesome.
Chris, after Taylor died, how did you make to come back in to do that album? You know, where were you personally as a human? Where did you feel the future was?
I mean, that's a great question, and it's a bit of a blur, honestly. Like we went almost straight from Taylor dying and, you know, just being in complete shock with that, you know, pretty quickly into preparing for the first tribute show. And that took some time and was so bizarre being, you know, at our studio without him and rehearsing songs with all those other drummers, you know, that weren't him, and all the stuff, you know, that took a while to get that together. And then we did the first one, and then did a second one here in LA, and that took some time, you know, to rehearse and get ready for that. And it wasn't until sometime that fall, you know, I think. I don't remember exactly what I think Taylor died in like maybe the spring of that year. And then it wasn't until the fall. So it had been not that long. It was something like, I don't remember in real time really like thinking about like, how am I doing this, or how do I feel, or anything. Like, you're just sort of moving along with it and just doing it. But like the initial recording sessions were so strange because, you know, Dave wound up playing all the drums on that record, but the initial way that we tried tracking it was he would track a drum track, and then we would blast the drum track in the room, and we would all play along with it. And we tracked a bunch of stuff like that. I'll be honest, I don't know what got used from that and what was, and how much of the record was the stuff that we did a little later on at Greg's studio. Because I think some of that stuff that we initially tracked, we then took over there and changed and added to and stuff.
Because Rest is the extraordinary track for me, you know.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, you can't listen to that without knowing what it's about. Or, you know,
sure.
And just that moment when you all come in with that huge chord, it's like monolith of sound.
Yeah.
There's something about that is a statement about that guy's life.
Yeah. Yeah. It was it's just a dark time, and
but you got creativity out of it as well, didn't you?
Yeah, and made that record. And then at the very end, I mean, literally the very end of making that record, we finally had the conversation of like, okay, now what? You know, now what do we do? Who should we get on drums? And we started having that conversation, and then you know, pretty much went straight from that into rehearsing with Josh, and then going on the road, and that was a really tough time, man. Like those early shows, and particularly the first show that we played, was just fucking heavy. I mean, it was hard. It was hard to look at the crowd because so many people were crying.
Wow.
You know.
So, in a way, you know, you're important to so many people, aren't you? As a band, you know, you represent them on a higher stage, and they wanted you to keep going. And in a way, it keeps Taylor's name going as well, right?
Yeah,
you know, it's his spirit.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think the feeling that I got overwhelmingly from going out and doing shows and seeing our fan base and interacting with, you know, like we've been a band for a long time, and there's a core group of Foo Fighter fans who you basically know. You know, you recognize them. Might not know all their names, but you see them. They travel all over the world. They're always down front. And those folks are kind of how I generally gauge, you know, how, like, if you win them over, maybe you win the casual fans over too. Like, you know what I mean? And so my sense was, yeah, that people were happy that it didn't end, you know, and I think people were very accepting of, you know, the
Yeah.
you know, initially having Josh playing drums and now with Alon, you know, I think
Can
our
we
fan
finish
base
up?
seems to have welcomed him with open arms. So
Can we
it's
finish up
great.
talking about the new record? Because it's
Yeah,
much more punk, isn't it?
Yeah,
And let's have
totally.
a tiny little detail, because I just love the idea of of Viva Death, of this band who are all baritone guitar. I just love it.
Well, that was
this?
really, so that was a band that my brother Scott and Trevor, who's the lead singer, guitar player in Face to Face, which band my brother has been in for a very long time. That was their brainchild, and Scott was nice enough to bring me in and have me play some stuff on those records. And that was the first time I think I ever played a baritone guitar. And I don't think at that point I knew about the baritone sort of country
Is that like the
music lineage.
Fender 6? Is that the Fender 6, like the Fender 6 bass thing?
I think that, yeah, is that a baritone
No,
guitar?
it's just a guitar with longer strings, isn't it? Longer neck.
Well, it's interesting. So in the old honky tonk days, they would often double the bass line with a baritone guitar. I think I might be getting the terminology wrong, but I think they call that the tack guitar. It's kind of the clacky.
No, but and I'm thinking of like Glenn Campbell did that on Extra Alignment.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's a thing. The baritone is a powerful instrument, and almost like more powerful to me when you have less gain. You know, the more twang and the more you've got that, like, you know, you're playing it through a deluxe reverb on like 4.5, you know, in that little sweet spot.
I think Alex uses it in Arctic Monkeys, doesn't he? They're quite into baritone.
Oh, probably.
Guitar. Yeah.
They have great.
But anyway, the new album. So this is the energy is different, because I heard Dave talking about it. You know, it's and having listened to it, there's a punk energy on it.
There's very much a punk energy to it, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, like, because when we started making the record, we just kind of fell into it. We recorded that single, Today's Song, was just kind of a one-off thing, and then we recorded another song, Asking for a Friend, and then it was kind of after that we started recording a bunch of instrumental ideas, and some of it was like the stuff that wound up on the record, which was kind of more aggressive and kind of gnarlier sounding, and some of it was really not. It was like that other thing that Foo Fighters does here and there, of kind of a more spacey, you know, almost psychedelic kind of sounding stuff. And it was sort of, you didn't really know which way it was going to go, or what. Maybe it was like, is this going to be a double album, or is this going to be, you know, who knows. And then it just, you know, as these things do, it just kind of congealed into what the album became. And it's always like that with Foo Fighter records. It's sort of like, we'll record a bunch of musical ideas, and the stuff that inspires Dave to like actually write a lyric and put a vocal on it.
So do you ever jam in the room together, or
at points we sure, but not for this record at all. Right. Because we recorded at Dave's, you know, he's got a little room above his garage. There's not a lot of room in there. It's sort of like I'd get there and, you know, record my stuff, and then I'd be done, and then Pat would be showing up, or Nate, or, you know, we were sort of.
How was it when Pat came back? How was it when Pat came back? Did you feel a little bit threatened there, Chris?
Oh, 1,000,000%. I thought that was the end of my job. Yeah, totally. Because I always say, you got to remember, like, I didn't know Pat until Pat came back. You know, I'd met him a couple times here and there, but we weren't like friends or anything. And I was the guy that I didn't technically replace him. There was a guitar player between us, but you know, like, from the fans' point of view, I was replaced him or whatever. You know, he had the job first. So
it's like the old gunslinger coming back into town, right?
I know, right? Yeah, yeah, and then it took me about 5 seconds to get over that with because then I got to know Pat, and we just kind of hit it off. We had figured out we had a lot of things in common.
Great. Yeah. And is there a tour? Are you on tour?
Yeah.
What?
We've been doing a lot of promo stuff. We've been doing like, underplays and doing lots of interviews and all that sort of stuff. So we've been traveling doing that, but no, it really gets going in the summer. We're doing a bunch of European shows. We're only playing Liverpool this summer, so we won't be playing in London.
What, you
I
playing
want you to know that
Anfield?
we're playing Anfield. I ordered online these huge Arsenal stickers to stick on the back of my red and white guitar that I will probably not have the nerve to actually hold up.
Yeah, good. So good
But
luck
I'll
getting
know
that.
it's there. I'll know it's there.
Good luck getting out of there.
Do you know Anne Hathaway is a big Arsenal supporter?
I've seen that. Yeah, we got
I've
some
seen her
good
online
supporters.
Singing North London Forever.
I know. It's great.
Talking
We've got Mick Jagger. We've got Steve Earle. We've got Christopher Nolan. We've got you. We got one time I went to an Arsenal game and I went in there to pick
Arsenal
up
team. Arsenal.
Oh,
fan.
really? Okay, great. Yeah, I went in to go pick up my tickets and I look over and Ray Davies was standing there grabbing his tickets. I was like, what?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh, one last thing is I don't know if it still applies to, but your nickname was Shifty, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a fantastically English nickname.
Oh, really?
I can't imagine an American being called Shifty. I can imagine half the people I know being called Shifty.
It's like
I think it was just a lazy nickname on behalf of my bandmates. You know what I mean? Because my nickname it's funny because when I joined Foo Fighters, I remember one of the first things they said, like, somebody asked me if I had a nickname. I was like, I have a nickname. It's Jackson. I had this nickname from my Fat Records days was Jackson, and they're like, no, we can't call you that. You're Shifty.
And are you always shifty, Chris? Are you always shifty?
Well, my brother's Instagram handle is The Real Shifty. So I think it might be debatable at Thanksgiving who the real Shifty is, but I think we know.
Chris, it's such a pleasure having you on, man. I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, you guys.
Really great. Lovely to meet you,
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And let's you guys got to come out to a show next time we're over there.
For sure. Also, by the way, one thing we heard from our producer was it was Earth Day was the show.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's what it was. When we saved the world.